This week, we run a sweaty, ecchi gauntlet of an anime.
And I serve my extended sentence in high school.
Believe it! Wait, what show are we doing?
I am Kyle.
And I'm Garrett.
And we watch anime. Garrett, every time we hit another 0 on our episode numbers, two things have to happen. We have to stretch the boundaries in ecchi anime. The second is we have to rope in as many other people as we can just so we can enjoy their experience. This week we discuss a show that is a marathon of sweat, anime breasts, panty shots, and violence. On your way, you get smatterings of an interesting plot, intrigue, and buddy comedy. This week, we tackle the high school ecchi suspense teen comedy, Prison School. But before we begin, Garrett, what are new fans going to be expecting from this show?
Just buckets and buckets of sweat. Buckets of audible coochie sweat.
I want to say that this satisfies the Kevin theorem of anime sweat in that, Japan is less sweaty than what anime depicts it.
Right.
So,
Kevin from Big Stupid Podcast is
definitely
just constantly perplexed by the amount of sweat that these animes exhibit. And this one is pinnacle, peak, apex.
Some of these women are biologically 2% snail. That's what I think when I watch some of these. So Garrett, once again, we are on the 10s, which just means we just dive into the etchiest stuff we can find.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of do it. I kind of noticed that this was a theme for us. So I picked a show that was we were here with Kakegurui. We were just a lot higher with High School of the Dead, and now we're in Prison School, and that is a whole new level.
And we couldn't do it alone.
No, we couldn't.
Do it alone.
No, we couldn't. So we brought back our Weeb wannabe, our friend Tavis. Tavis, welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, great to be here. This was a weird show.
Yeah.
I feel like Prison School is the gateway drug that brings people from anime to tentacle porn. Prison School is on Hulu, which is everyone has Hulu. Families watch Hulu. But no, the next series you watch, hard tentacle porn.
It's like the DARE program. They're trying to get kids away from drugs, but then they show them a whole bunch of drugs. And they're like, don't do this one. This one will make you all have fun and will make your problems go away. Don't do this.
That's like the Dewey Cox story. Don't smoke weed, Dewey.
Yeah.
It'll make you happy.
It'll make problems go away. Don't do it, Dewey.
There are no negative implications for marijuana.
So once again, we are doing the show Prison School. It seems very obvious on its face. There's a little bit more context to it. But just to give you an explanation of the show, the manga ran from 2011 to 2017 and kind of gives you an idea. 2011 was a much different time than it was. So it kind of started this kind of, very ecchi comedy. It's I want to say it's of the American Pie version in Japan. The anime only ran for 12 episodes in 2015. And it did a really good job of making me actually continue to read the manga. So for me, I still read the manga after the anime was over.
Right. But the entire time I was asking myself, who airs this? This isn't NBC must-see Thursday television.
No.
This has to be buried somewhere.
So another thing is that these when we go in the 10s, we do ecchi stuff, but I'm also noticing a theme of this is another show in which this is a high school, but it has something else to it. It's a high school, but it's got a gambling ring to it, like Kakegurui. It's a high school, but it's got zombies. This one is it's a high school, but there's a prison industrial complex right in the middle of the school.
Right.
So it's an awesome show. So what we're gonna do again, this is a panel discussion with the two guys. I'm gonna lead the discussion, and essentially we're gonna get an idea on what the show's all about, the different themes that are happening, and maybe pull some moments that really made us laugh or think really weird about. So to start, guys, let's talk through the premise of the show. Garrett, Tavis, What is Prison School all about?
Well, if I can kick it off, it's Prison School is set in high school. Big surprise, running theme. And it's an all-women's high school. It always has been an all-women's high school, and they're very happy to have it be an all-women's high school until this year.
Mm.
And in this year, they've decided to go co-ed, but instead of going full co-ed, which would seem to make sense to me, they've decided to allow only 5 guys in, okay? So they allow these 5 guys in, and immediately they want nothing to do with them. The girls are like, those boys are nasty, why do we want them here? But in particular, a group that's highly offended is, and I love when one of the main characters calls this out, is the official underground student council. And he says, wait a minute, if it's official, how can it be underground? Is it underground or is it official?
Yeah, this is another one of those shows in which student councils are held on these like insane pedestals of high school when we all know in the United States they're like the biggest dorks with no actual power. So on night 1, literally night 1, these 5 boys try and become peeping toms and break into the shower. And we'll get into the details of this, but in short, they are caught. They are then told that based upon regulations, which, by the way, this is the first year boys have been there, so I have no idea who drew up these regulations this past summer, but they have to go to prison, which somehow there's a prison constructed in the courtyard of the school already. In like the middle of school. It's like a panopticon made in the middle of this school.
For 1 month, they have to go to prison. The alternative is that they'll tell their parents and expel them. And if they keep screwing up while in prison, they'll extend the term. So this is sort of the base upon which the entire show rests. That and Mako's breasts.
Yes.
The entire show is based on that premise and Mako's breasts.
If you were to hear the title Prison School, and I'm going to pass this off to Tavis now. Tavis, you heard the term, the title Prison School. I would say that for the first 2 episodes, it really kind of kept with the theme. It got a little bit more deep. It had a plot later, but it really was as surface level as you can get. So as the person who doesn't do this regularly with us and wants to get into anime, and I made you watch two already, what was your expectations, and were they met or exceeded when you did the first 2 episodes?
I gotta say, I love it. I absolutely love it. So they flipped it all on the head, because most of the time when you go to prison, you have to do school to get out of your prison sentence earlier. But this is completely backwards. Like, you are at school and now you're in prison and you have to do your sentence too. Like, what is happening here? There is so much going on. Through the first couple episodes, it is a highlight reel of my favorite 80s movies. Like, it is Porky's, it is Animal House, it is American Pie. It is a highlight reel of it, and I absolutely love it. I get it. I can empathize with these kids, like freshmen. I mean, Garrett pointed it out. Day 1, like, come on, like
you could have waited a little bit.
They haven't even been to half their classes yet. Like, they were in prison. They were in prison for like 2 weeks before their first computer class. They don't know who's in there. Like, what is happening here? So day 1, I get it. Maybe they come from a fishing village that's really backwater. Who knows? But I'm all aboard. Prison School is where it's at, and tentacles to come. Here we go.
But my whole thing is like, when they gave them the option of, we can either put you literally in like striped prison garb and make you slaves to these girls, or we're going to tell your parents, I would be like, tell my parents, because my guess is they're paying for me to go here. Like, not to be abused.
But they still had to go to class, mind you. They still not only did like prison labor, but they still had to like sit in class and do homework and do all that stuff at the same time. It was a weird scenario, and in my mind, I'm with you, Garrett. Like, I would just be like, I got caught peeping. I don't know, like, yeah. And eventually, what's interesting, so Tavis put a good point that this is like Porky's, this is like American Pie, this is supposed to be like a teen comedy a la, any number of, horny teenager shows, but it's like darker and more wild than that. Like,
well, none of those movies had prison guards that were Student Council members who were frickin' dominatrix, which is essentially.
But not only that, but you're right. But not only that, but like the way that the animation done, like there's a lot of zooming of people's eyeballs, and like there's a lot of like the faces get all contorted, and like they're constantly getting like beat to no end. So like the idea of this is like just your cute little teen comedy with like, oh, but we're set in prison. No, that doesn't even explain half of it, because it's also like weirdly like sadistic at the same time as being this like romp of a teen comedy.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk through the characters a little bit. Because you brought up one makeup, but let's go through the guys, because it's not just your average. There's one main character that's a little vanilla, a little cardboard boxy, naturally, but the rest of the guys are really interesting. So let's walk through it. So Garrett, tell me about the main character and his friend Gakuto, the glasses guy.
Kyoshi Fujino, he is your vanilla box. He is cardboard. He is as boring as they come, and of course,
probably the best looking. Probably the best looking of the five.
He is the best looking, though a very slight frame, which will come into play later. And we are going to be forced to swallow his relationship with a girl and with Chio-san and have to give a crap about it, even though it's the least entertaining part of the show.
Right.
His friend Takahiro, or Gakuto, I guess is his name, is a giant dork with long hair and glasses. He's a bit of a madman, and he is absolutely obsessed with something I think you and Tavis are familiar with, Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah. Did you? So knowing that this is the Romance of Three Kingdoms, I'm glad that you joined us on this one, Tavis, because I forgot about the Romance of Three Kingdoms stuff. I know that you're like a huge fan of the video games, just the saga, the whole history of it. Did you geek out at the references to Lubu and like I know that when I watched it, I was like, ooh, I know that because of Tavis. Ooh, I know that because of Tavis. Red hair, I know that one. Like, what do you think, Tavis? Did it strike a nerve for you?
Yeah, well, when we all watch this, I like to think that we all imagine like, hey, which character would we be? And no one chooses Gakuto. No one chooses. But the second he started talking about Guan Yu, I'm like, son of a, that's me. Oh.
I guess I'm that one.
And Kyle, you were saying, and I don't pick this up, but he uses his language the way a samurai would use their language.
He speaks very like old-timey samurai-ish. He ends a lot of his sentence with Degozaru, which is a very, 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 very old and polite way of saying stuff. And so they tried to do in the English translation, didn't come through. That's why I had to kind of keep running into like, he's talking like an old samurai. He's talking like an old samurai. You're not getting, because it goes, this one he would say sometimes, or he'd say like, the honorable, or they like hitherforth, or he said something. Sally Forth was one of the translations. So I was like, okay, I mean, I gotta have.
He said like Witherfor is my figurine or something like that.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. So it's to show that he is for like such a nerd and like kind of a guy who has like no idea about women and anything like that. He is like such a high intelligence when it comes to like samurai and Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is favorite.
So can I just say that if this was a real world scenario and 5 people were accepted into an all-girls school, they would all 5 be Gakutos. Yeah. All 5 of them. There wouldn't be a diversity. Like there would be no spectrum. All 5 would be him. He is. So
Tavis, you're telling me that there wouldn't be one with a tiny face on top of a huge head, like he's a Dick Tracy villain? So yeah, I go for it. So we have Shingo, who is like the pompadour friend. He's a little bit more boring. But then you got 2 more Tavis that I wanted you to talk me through. And I brought up one whose name was Andre, also known as Reiji Ando.
Was that like an Andre the Giant reference?
It's a joke on Andre the Giant, yes. But Tavis, I really want you to like bring up the big, lovable Andre and what his deal is.
Yeah, I mean, he's just I think he's going to turn into the muscle of the crew, like that lovable giant, hey, anyone got a peanut? Like, I hope they have peanuts. Although, based off of his body proportions, I think he's allergic to peanuts. Definitely
he's just
something
perpetually swollen the whole show. He's perpetually going through it.
And I feel bad for him. Like, I feel the most for Andre because he's the one that they are truly punishing through this whole thing. Like they have psychologically got after this. Everyone else is just physical torture. They psychologically get after Andre, and he's clearly not prepared for it.
But then eventually starts to like it.
Oh, yeah.
He's a man who starts to like this kind of stuff. He is into it. He wants it some more periods in my sentence, that kind of stuff. So so yeah, he's yeah, as you said, he's the strong guy. He's like the lovable giant, but he's like really proportioned with a huge head, but his face is like 1/20th of the size of his head.
Earlobes like New York strip steaks.
He's like shaped like an egg. He's a weird dude. And then
So,
we get Joji. Sorry, Tavis, you go
real
ahead.
quick on Andre, and just because I don't know, like I feel like based off the drawing style, they're trying to characterize something like that's a stereotype that maybe is just lost in America, in the U.S. Like, is that a stereotype of something in Japan or with anime for some type of character?
I'm glad you brought that up because I remember when I was watching, I was like, I remember there was like the way his earlobes are specifically. It was very Buddha. Like he looks like what's called as a daibutsu, which is like a Buddha statue, because he's got the huge earlobes. That's what gave it away to me. He's very round and fat. I don't know about the face proportions. I think that's just for comical effect. But I would say he's like a mix of the weird face with like a Buddha daibutsu. I can't really say for certain, but I did think that as well. Like, what are they going for here? Yeah, I don't know. That's good. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's also a guy named Joji who they call Joe Nezu.
I think he's also known as Ezio from Assassin's Creed.
Also known as TV Patient 27 on
Patient Zero.
Yeah, Patient Zero. So tell me, so Tavis, you kind of had an idea. What's Joe's jam?
So you know, he's the mysterious. I think he has like a wild card up his sleeve that he's waiting to play, and right now the only thing that he's got going for him is that he bleeds from his mouth all the time.
Yeah, and coughs.
And everyone is way too accepting of the reason that he bleeds from his mouth. Like, he's just like, cough, 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 blood everywhere. Oh, sorry, guys, it's just canker sores. Like, you had an extra martini or something.
They are. By the way, canker sores are contagious. I wouldn't want this guy like hacking a lung in front of me. There's not like nothing can happen with that.
He's got consumption.
He does. This man clearly has tuberculosis and he's going to die. And I don't care what canker sores he thinks.
And he's also obsessed with ants.
He's obsessed with ants. With jam too. So they're all weirdos. Like this is the thing. Like it's not like we have like 5 cool anime tropes. We're like they're 5 freaks and geeks that have gone into this world of beautiful women. Like there's not a single unattractive female to be found in this show.
It's on the application.
Yeah. no fuglies in this.
Well, you got to remember who's accepting these people.
That's
this
true.
Is all girls school, with the head honcho being this porn-loving like old man.
I thought. And so, Garrett, talk us through that guy because I think because we've got more characters.
That's such a wonderful like comic relief. That's total sidebars, like all the time. So the principal of the school, while you might think he has some level of power over things, through the first 8 episodes of the anime, he is completely inadequate. A side character whose only bit is that his daughter, Mari, is actually the president of the student council. And she grows continually disgusted by him because he is addicted to like booty photos.
Butts. This man loves damn butts.
My wife lost it today when his Amazon package opened and out fell a mouse pad that was butt cheeks. And he's like, oh, I have the carpal tunnel. My wrist has been hurting me.
He had his addiction so bad he had to like legit bury his butt pictures in.
And then he went and dug them back up. So he had to bury them in concrete.
And I think that's a funny foil because, as you said, we'll go into the underground school, underground student council. We have Mari Kurihara, who is like the stone cold president, no nonsense. And the foil for her is that, what was that?
Is she a tsundere? Or kundere?
I would say she's more of a kudere because tsunderes are very like outgoing but kind of dumb and ditzy, like that kind of stuff.
That's a tsundere. All right.
That's a tsundere. They're always like, I'm better than you, that kind of person. Like they're kind of they emit a better than you.
So she's like a Busujima.
She is very much a Busujima, but a mean one. And Garrett's like, say it again, Busujima. And we get to her, and she is her foil. And I'm glad you brought the principal first. Is that first off, she can somehow control crows. That's the first thing she can do. And the second thing is that every time her dad is caught with some sort of garbage porn somewhere, she is constantly making life for the prison school boys a whole lot worse. So, like, if it wasn't for the dad, these guys would actually have a pretty straightforward, experience, but it just keeps getting worse because of the principal.
Can we talk about the crows for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
I completely don't understand the crows.
Me
Like, the thing that shocks me the most is that they haven't done anything sexual yet.
No,
like,
they had one point where Mako falls back and one of the crows lands, all talons surrounding her breasts, and has her pinned down, and she's like, no, with like crows like right on top of her. So I remember that. I was like, oh, they did use the crows. Yeah.
They did. So if she's controlling the crows, that's very weird. But also, I feel like it's all building to this like last big moment that's a mixture between like an orgy and Alfred Hitchcock. It's gonna be like a birds on the prison. Yeah, there's
they all
something
fit
up
into a
with the
telephone
crows.
booth, and they're just like, no, the birds pecking at them and stuff like that. Somehow it gets more etchy at that moment. But we got to give space. I think a special space to is quite arguably the hardest character to explain in this show. And that would be Garrett, someone who we mentioned before, is our girl, Mako Shiraki, who is the vice president. And I want to give us a little bit more time than we have given other characters to talk about her. Garrett, if you were to meet Mako in the street and she was wearing and being exactly as she was in school, what would that experience be like, Garrett?
She makes Pamela Anderson look like an A cup. No, if you came across her in school, your first thought would be, why did they care about spaghetti straps when I was in school? Because she's got side boob the size of my head.
Also, this is another one I made Christine watch. This is another Kyle makes his wife watch weird stuff, the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I got her to watch this. And the one thought she had, she goes, where's this woman's nipples? Because you say side boob, it's just the inner part, and her breasts are like way out to here, like really far out. And she's like, where are her nipples? I don't know where this could be hidden in this shirt. And no one told this poor girl, because mind you, she's in high school, put on bigger clothes. You fit into better clothes. There are bigger sizes than the one you've picked. Just because you found it in junior high doesn't mean you should carry it into your sophomore year. She's like, no, I still fit. And her shirt is like constantly trying to like, hold them in and stuff like that. What's some other things about Mako that we need to know?
She is sadistic. She is the one that's truly, while Mari is the mastermind, and while the next character we're going to talk about has her own level of violence, Mako is the primary disciplinarian, and the one that I would say, if Mari's the president, Mako's the general, and she carries out the plans, gathers the intel, and their goal to essentially get these 5 boys expelled and return their school to normal.
Right. And I think it's important to note that we get a taste of what Mako's certain style disciplinarian is. We'll talk about the first 2 episodes, which basically sets up how these boys are going to be treated throughout the show. And one such punishment for messing up their giving yard work that they were doing is that Mako asked them to say heads or tails. And I remember this is an important part for me that it was very noteworthy. Tavis, can you talk us through the heads or tails discipline?
Well, everyone was a little confused initially when they're just like, oh, we know we messed up, but heads or tails. And they call it just like the start of a football match.
Yeah.
But shortly after they called their sides, she took them both to the ground. And the heads, she did her Hindu squats on their face. And the tails, she just beat the crap out of the I think it was Kiyoshi's ass, just freaking with her riding crop. And it was just, this was the coin toss, the heads or tails. I don't know who loses.
One of those I think one of those is decidedly worse than that.
But it did make it seem like Gakuto did make it seem like he couldn't breathe. He was like,
right. But let's also, we're going to circle back because you wanted to really, no pun intended, flesh out Mako.
Yeah.
She is a prodigious sweater.
Yes.
When she's nervous, you hear, and like just the sweat starts coming. When she's angry, and she starts sweating, and it like drips everywhere all the time.
I would nickname her Big Wool because she's a heavy sweater. So she like, I think another thing that's up with her is, besides that she wears clothing that is quite too small for her and that she sweats a lot, is that she's constantly exercising, like in the middle of her discipline for no reason. Like while she's like explaining, like, you guys need to do this, and she's like doing Hindu squats while she's explaining stuff to them, and like the guys are just like staring at him the whole time. I'm like, well, you asked for this.
and if we can explain something to our viewers that they'll only get to see probably in one or two screenshots on our YouTube if we even put it up. Part of this show is, so there's gratuitous sexual insinuation. We're going to get even more into the things that they do, but they give you full breast, crotch, butt shots. And what they do is they use this technique where they put just like a white sheen stripe across the screen to block what you're not supposed to be seeing. But they do these random things like Mako walks into a room, someone else is in the room. So what's the next camera shot? From between her legs, from behind. And
with a single white stripe going through it. And this is something we wanted to talk about with the censorship of this show. Like, I get, like, you need to censor some of these things. They're quite gratuitous. But in the process of doing so, you've created a long tube that is pointing and covering and like stretching across the posteriors and breasts of these women that is by no means suggestive of anything else. It is quite phallic, the shape of these censorship bars, that like you can only suggest other things than they're trying to block what's going on underneath.
Yep. Now, what we can't, because I'm looking at the notes that you provided here, but we cannot forget who is the third, and I got to be honest with you, arguably my favorite member of the student council.
By the way, this is all in episode 2. We have gratuitous sex, peeping scenes. We have a guy getting their butts kicked by, and one girl sitting on his face. We got, like severe violence, everything, porn, everything. It's going on in the first 2 episodes, and then we meet Hana.
By the way, you sound like
or not.
You sound like Bill Hader on Weekend Update. You're like, the hottest club in New York is Prison School. It's got sitting up. It's got.
So true. So
Anyway, back to
she is the secretary. Her name is Hana.
Yes.
Hana Midorikawa.
Mm-hmm.
Talk us through it, guys. What's her jam?
Hana is like a judo champ. Mm-hmm. So under her schoolgirl outfit, she wears these like knickers or these sort of short jeans or shorts or whatever, because she's constantly flying through the air and kicking people in the face, which I don't think is a part of judo. Isn't judo mostly tossing?
I think she does karate. I thought she was a karate champion.
I think she's a karate champion.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, she is sort of that like quiet, meek, blonde character, and then out of nowhere throws a strike across your face.
Yeah.
But things with her get weird real quick, and it's in this episode where she's beating the crap out of everyone, and our lead character Kiyoshi finds himself separated, and he finds a small crow on the ground. Mm-hmm. And the crow is fallen clearly from a nest up above.
Right.
He climbs the tree and he brings the crow to the nest. And while he's up there, he has a conversation through the window with the girl that he really likes. I don't care. And
Gio is her name, by the way.
And below him, Hana comes along, and she's away from everyone else. And clearly she's got to go to the bathroom. So she drops Trow in the woods to take a leak. And Kiyoshi falls out of the tree and lands under her cooter while she's peeing.
Like literally, like lands facing everything. It was
right, and she is embarrassed as all get out by this, and she thinks he's going to tell everyone he's dirty. But Kiyoshi, he's vanilla. He's a good guy. He's not going to tell anyone.
Right.
But she becomes obsessed.
So Tavis, walk us through what happens. What does Hana do as retribution for him seeing her in a very insecure and delicate position?
I mean, I think it goes back to her training where she's thinking this has to be an eye for an eye. I got to level the playing field.
That's right. She's like,
Like
this
I'm
guy.
at a disadvantage right now and I got to level it. So the only way I can level this intimate action is if I replicate the same scenario, not understanding how a guy's junk works, and I'm just going to sit at point blank range
Right close to
and make Kiyoshi pee in front of me. And that's her grand plan. And as the karate master, like she is focused on this, and she goes so much to she's force feeding him dandelion tea. She's super hydrating. It's amazing.
Water, go, I can't hold my bladder. It's like
and she gets exactly what she hopes, or not what she hopes, but maybe what
what
she's
was
asking
the eventuality
for.
of this? Because she did, as you said, she did get like this close towards him, like almost like a curious, like your kid at the zoo looking at a bareback gorilla, just like what's going on with this going on over here? And he's like, I don't want to do it. And she's like, do it, pee in front of me. And this is another one of those moments, Garrett. I don't know if you're sick of it yet. I'll keep asking. Of the wah, she like does like a Home Alone fall like on her back, and all of a sudden you get the
and his pants get ripped down, and he just golden showers the hell out of her.
I think we got to give a golf clap for Kiyoshi's junk because clearly it belongs on Andre.
And she's like, I need to take a sick day, and we don't see her for a good 2 or 3 episodes. That's that. And once again, that is 2 episodes. A lot of it's packed into 2 episodes. And we get to the main plot because, as you said, Garrett, the main character, Kiyoshi, he goes and he sees the girl Chiyo, who actually happens to be the sister of Kari and the principal, so they're all one family. And he wants her to go on a date with him. She wants to go on a date with him as well. And so they plan this date, but he's like kind of a dummy. He doesn't tell her like, oh, I can't do this. I'm in school jail.
Well, and that's what kills me is I get it. It's a TV show, Garrett. Like, just shut up. Yeah. But so many things, this is why I don't like Ben Stiller movies. So many things are just easily explained with the truth.
Yeah, if you just sat for like 5 minutes, stopped what you were doing, not make the situation worse, and just talk, right?
So instead of saying, hey, I know you invited me to these sumo matches because that's how they bonded. She wants to go see sumo.
And this was prior to my prison school experience.
And he lied about liking sumo, so vanilla.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone's fibbed about how much you like something in the name of hanging out with someone else. Not his reason. But he could have simply said, hey, I really apologize. Everyone in the school knows we're in prison, and we're not being allowed out on the weekends. I promise to make it up to you when this is over.
Right.
But then I guess we don't have a show.
No, we don't have a show, Garrett, because instead of that, he says, we're going to go on that date, come hell or high water, and he gets a partner in our good friend Gakuto. And Gakuto is very excited to help because he's supportive of his friend. He's like, I want you to have this experience. But more than anything, he wants goes to Akihabara and get a full like figurine that only comes once every 4 years. I don't know how that works, but like comes once every 4 years to get this Guan Yu action figure.
Kyle, if I may step in for a moment,
yes,
it kind of works like this. Toy companies release limited edition figurines, and they are only available at certain cons. So some people line up for Comic-Con New York or Comic-Con San Diego, and sure, maybe when you and I lined up, we were waiting to get in line to get an autograph from Hulk Hogan or R.L. Stein or to see something. Well, there are people who are lining up, and the first place they are dashing is to buy that $500
and they won't stay for the con.
Iron Man that there's only like 40 of them made.
Right.
So
he wants that, and so he's going to help, which is now the next arc that we're going to is the breakout. So now this goes from being a weird, ecchi teen comedy, which had a lot of great moments, to how do we break out of the slammer? And so, guys, talk me through what happens. How do they plan this thing? What are some things you took from it?
Take it, Tavis.
I mean, so this had a lot of good. This brought me back to a couple Prison Break shows. So I don't I don't fully understand. They show the map of the school a couple times, but
Yeah.
but I haven't really internalized like where the actual prison is, because they do a lot of manual labor and building fences, but
Yeah.
then you never see where it pans out. Like they're doing all this work, but
Right.
I don't understand the geography of where they're at. So they come up with this master plan that involves digging a hole and tunneling, as any good prison break goes, and distractions, and there's guards that are watching them, so we need to come up with alternative methods of distraction and accountability plans. And it's pretty good, because Gakudo is the best general, or what's the line? He's the
I'm the general of Narima or something like that.
I don't know where Narima is, but he's pretty good at what he's doing.
At strategizing this thing, absolutely. He's
absolutely.
And so one of the so as you said, they're trying to get, so there's a track meet happening on the day of their date, and they're trying to get out of the wall, or get to the wall to get out so he can go to the date, buy the figurines, come back. And know that there's stakes here, because if you get caught once, you extend your sentence. If you get caught twice, you get even more suspension. After 3 times, you get expelled. So there's some real stakes of actually getting caught breaking out. And so one of the things is they want to get him to the bathroom, so that which is where the hole is located, without getting noticed. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, at some point someone's going to ask, why is this person taking forever in the bathroom?
Now, can I step in here, Kyle?
Yes, please, by all means. Yeah, go ahead.
So, spoiler alert. For anyone who wants to watch the show, if we haven't sold you yet and you want to keep on going, keep on listening. We think you should watch it, but it all comes down to the underlying theme of hemorrhoids.
Oh yeah, the first thing is hemorrhoids.
Hemorrhoids. Okay. Yeah. So Kiyoshi, his poor Tookus. So firstly, we now have told everyone that while there's 5 guys in prisons, essentially Kiyoshi and Gakudo have teamed up, and they're not telling their buddies. And it's not that they don't trust their buddies, but it's that, like, the more people that know about something, the more danger you're in.
Right.
And their one friend, Shingo, keeps catching them talking with one another, and keeps catching them in these weird situations where he thinks they're having homosexual sex with one another. Yes. They're having sex with one another, you know? And so there's like a few series of jokes about their butthole tightness. So that's number 1.
Pure gold.
Pure gold.
Number 2, when they're trying to figure out how they're going to get from this bathroom to the escape.
Yeah.
Kiyoshi discovers that there's this underground sort of tunnel that has tiling on top of it. And so the first time he's crawling underneath there, and he crawls underneath while Mako is disciplining the other 3 boys, and she's doing her Hindu squat.
Right over. And my favorite was like drop of sweat hits him right in the eyeball. Like a really close up shot of him, like, and it was like a Visine commercial, just like, boink!
And as he starts to crawl to go away, her stiletto goes through the tile and right into his ass, causing him to bleed. So now they've created this idea that Kiyoshi has the worst bloody hemorrhoids at all times.
And they also want to make it seem like he's going to be in the bathroom. So yes, Gary, you did frame it pretty well. And so Gakuto's like, I got an idea. Why don't we just play sound of you going to the bathroom all the time so that no one's going to be checking in on you? And so they get to computer class, and the computer class, he goes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a fart sound. Now, weirdly enough, he gave up after the words poop.mp3. I was like, keep looking, buddy. I mean, you're supposed to be such a smart guy. Like,
in his defense, this was their first computer class.
That's true. He's like, poop.mp3. No, damn. And he's like, our plan is ruined. I was like, you can do more better, buddy. You can do more. Look up fart.mp3. I can give you a whole bunch of other ones. Butt biscuits.mp3. Like, a whole number of words can happen. And
cake fart.
So he goes, this is what I have to do for you, and I want this figurine so badly. I'm willing to sacrifice 3 years of my childhood. So Tavis, walk us through what was probably one of my favorite moments of this whole show.
So, due to his lack of foogling, he's
Oh yeah, they were searching on Google on their way to McDonald's as Garrett and I noticed.
he does something that I think is like 10 times harder, where he takes a sound and he digitizes it from like real life. And so he's this weird type of computer savant that can like bring digital recordings into this portal, but can't do a Fugle search, which is good. So he sacrifices, and this is an incredibly tense moment where Kachuto is trying to talk him out of it. He's like, no, and they understood. They have a bond at this moment, and they understood each other before the audience, the viewers.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I didn't understand what was happening, and they were like, "You can't do this." Well, I have to do this for the mission and for the plan and for my figurine, because 3 years is more. And he has this math problem where it makes sense. And then all of a sudden he stands up, and I'm pretty sure he sticks a microphone in his butt.
Mm-hmm.
And he just shits himself in front of class, which I have to say is two things. It's ultimate commitment to this plan. At that moment, Kyushu should know that, like, at no point will he ever get sold out. So he could have done that sitting down as well.
It's like a blood pact, but through you know.
Yeah.
And so,
But Gakudo could have also done that sitting down and not calling all this attention.
you also could have not shit yourself too. I'm pretty sure you could have ripped one without pooping. I don't know. But my favorite part was how earnest his face was while he was ripping out like the longest fart that's ever existed. Like he was just like hand tent, just like. And his glasses were doing the whole like shiny glasses thing, like he was like a Bond villain. But
I like to think it's fog from the poop.
The steam coming.
So, and the final part of the plan is they're like, because unfortunately the hole got filled, is we're gonna bust out by me dressing like a girl, and so Gakuto once again on top of crapping his pants. On top of like, you know, having everyone think that they're you know, homosexual couple, you know, a male couple, they decided to do something else. Garrett, talk me through that as well. What else other plan do they have to get out of the school?
So what happens is if everyone who's listening remembers earlier in the episode, when they're digging this hole, we're also seeing these sidebars with the principal.
Yeah.
After he dug up his butt photos, which, by the way, he's like memorized. He's like,
all their names.
Brazil, 1987. But after he digs them up,
Poop.mp3.
and he goes back into the woods, but with a wheelbarrow full of concrete to bury it. He just randomly sees the hole they've dug through the wall and decides to patch it.
Yeah.
And he asks no questions. He's just like, this is, our school's going to crap. So the boys, Gakudo and Kiyoshi, are trying to figure out how to get out again. And Gakudo has a plan, and he gets himself disciplined by Mako, who loves to lay down the discipline. And they have this moment where he's going to submit to the discipline, and he's on his knees, and she's like, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm ready to submit to this." And she goes into like a drawer and pulls out a pixelated pink object that's going and the scene cuts, and I'm thinking Gakudo's about to get pegged for the cause. However, it was a little bit of play from the animators. She just shaved his head. It was
with a dildo.
It took them a long time, but they made it work. That's what you get for pulling down Mari's pants.
So he gets his head shaved, and he gets to keep his hair. And they've decided that Kiyoshi's going to steal a uniform from the laundry bin, because every Saturday the laundry company comes and changes out the uniforms, and he figures that if he just put on a jacket, it wouldn't do any good. And again, remember, Kiyoshi has a very slight frame, so he can fit into a girl's uniform. And so he gets his hair cut. And I thought they were gonna fashion some type of great wig from it, but all they do is attach 2 different color pigtails to the side of his head.
And he steals a uniform, goes out, and has a lovely time with Chiyo.
It's only lovely for like 15 minutes. Which, by the way, this show. When you talk about like buddy comedies, it has all these like tiny things that really made me giggle that I don't know if I would giggle 22 episodes ago, or if and so she makes them lunch, and she makes them she makes them onigiri, and onigiri is usually this like rice enveloped meat. So it's usually like salmon or pork or beef or egg or something, and you wrap it in rice, and usually there's some seaweed on the outside of it. And she makes lunch for them, and he's like already eaten, and he's like, yay, carbs. And he starts eating the onigiri, and she didn't put anything inside.
And she made like 15 of them. So this poor guy's eating like just like big handfuls of rice.
But it was so stupid, but it made me laugh.
And I think and then ultimately it leads to their downfall. They get caught, and this is where we get to a major foil. But we're going to take a pause because we mentioned some really funny moments, and I don't want to go too far because I want people to really enjoy the show for what it's worth and all that stuff.
Right.
The first question I'm going to ask the crew here is the humor in this show. If I was to define the show's humor in 4 or 5 words, it would be boobs, butts, poop, and pee. That is this show's humor in a nutshell. At 35, 36, whatever age you guys appear to be, or whatever frog that is in frog years, Tavis, does this still register with you? Did this humor still make you laugh?
It did. It did make me feel weird sitting next to my wife watching it, who's like, who I believe her words were, does it have to be so exploitive? And I'm like, and yes, I mean, it tickled me pink. I thought it was funny. I don't know the culture in Japan. Part of me wants to say, well, you couldn't make this today. Well, yeah, you couldn't make it today in America.
Right.
But maybe Japan would gobble it right back up again.
Right. It does. It's basically like the humor that like I thought you could grow out of. It was like when I watched Adam Sandler's comedy special like a couple months ago, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to like this. This man has rolled out wheelbarrows full of unfunny nonsense for the past decade, easily. I watched his comedy special, and I'm like, I didn't know I still had a part in me that loved shabadoo humor as much as I did. It was still like, and I was still like, like I was as if I was watching SNL in 1997. That was
his new Netflix special.
It was like, yeah, it's on like Netflix because like Netflix, like,
yeah,
I feel he's got stock in Netflix now. Who knows? But this show still had parts in me that I thought were still funny. I will tell you another part and I'll give it to Saps afterwards. That's not in the anime, but is in the manga that I literally laughed while it was like the middle of the night while I was reading it as a manga. I think it was just like Mako's top opens up and Kiyoshi falls on her, but it was in a way in which his eyeball was like less than a millimeter away from her nipple. So it was just like this big shot of like his like veiny eyeball within like almost touching this giant areola. And he's like, ah! I remember thinking, I was in bed and it was like 12:30 in the morning. I was like, ah! And I made that noise and I scared my wife and my dad. I remember that moment distinctly because that's what this show does. It is not above anything.
Wait,
it is not above any humor.
Is there censorship in the manga?
No, you can
What's
see
that website?
It's called Buy the Manga, Garrett. We don't do that on this show. But Tavis, I'll extend it to you. The humor of the so Tavis, I want you to tell me, did the humor, because you're probably the biggest like stand-up, comedy stand-up aficionado of us three. I know you talk, you have a lot of great podcasts you listen to. Does this resonate with you as like good humor?
So I like so I had to let my guard down for this show. So
Yeah.
so the first couple episodes, I'm just like, oh man, like Tavis a decade ago would have absolutely ate this up. But is this really where I'm at in my life? And the answer is yes. Yes, I am here. It doesn't get old. And the art style is what I truly love about it. So it's
agree.
smooth, it's slick. And so the moments you were just talking about, Kyle, the nipple close up, whenever it gets like super sexual intense, the punchline of one of those jokes, the art style turns into this hyper realistic,
right.
like Ren and Stimpy-esque of just like boom, and that just gets, and I love it. I love how they transcend the medium of just like, we got the jokes here, but then the art style supports it,
right.
and it all just comes together. And I'm all about it. I'm absolutely all about it.
I would say that the humor here is earnest, right? Japan does a really good job of making jokes, but saying them so seriously that the joke is that they take it seriously, right? Like, like them being like, oh my God, they've been railing each other in the shower and being very earnest about that and stuff like that. But we get it on our side, but they do it earnestly. Or the fact that he's like crapping his pants, but he's like looking very seriously when he does it. They're very good. That's like their really style humor, which I really like. And they do that in spades in the show, and I really, really enjoy it. So
what I hope is that there's this like Japanese version of the FCC, and this show has just this like head-butting relationship with them, like South Park from 20 years ago, where the FCC is just like, you can't do this, and they're like, oh yeah, well watch us do it. We're gonna shine light over her crotch, and now we get away with it. And that's this whole relationship. Is they're just finding the gray areas between the Japanese FCC so that they can air on like Family Time 7 p.m.
Yeah, and then
That's what I hope in my heart.
Bar look like Borat when they're covering Borat's Johnson. It's like this very long. And that's what they do. They're like, oh, you want us to cover the butts? Well, here's a giant phallus covering the butt, and like that's how it works. So and another thing I wanted to do was like read some of the reviews for this show and see what you guys thought about it.
Sure.
These are reviews from Crunchyroll, even though it's not on Crunchyroll, which is really upsetting to me. I felt bad for you guys because I had you guys watch it on Hulu, and I know that Hulu saves all of your history from what you watched. And I didn't want
it's shared with my family.
Yes, and that it's something you share with your family. Crunchyroll is something you could take on the side and watch. And be like, I'm watching anime. It's its own thing. This is my time to do it. That's why,
So that's why you sent them over in a Google Drive?
Yeah, and so I had to give you my version of it, paid for by me, so that you guys can look at it at your leisure without informing your families of the perverse nature of your algorithm. And so, but here's the review that we got from Crunchyroll. The first one says, I watched this anime. I do not regret the decision to watch this, but I will probably never talk about watching this anime with anyone besides a select few. Hence, a stealthed 10 out of 10. Would you agree with that sentiment, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yeah, except that we are talking about it right now.
We are very open to that.
Put online.
This is going to be. I hope that this gets like a Library of Congress, like
This is the opposite of an anonymous like 10 out of 10.
All right, so the second review is, if aliens or post-apocalyptic humans discover a copy of this show and are able to play it somehow, they will know Japan was one of the most awesome countries on Earth, but also a bit effed up. It will appeal more to a young male audience, to be sure. I recommend this show. This is another Funimation catalog title already released on home video that needs to be viewed uncensored to fully appreciate the SNN and lasciviousness in all humor's glory. Get ready for annoying light rays. So what do you guys think about that review? Do you agree?
Let me ask you, is there a version of this that isn't censored?
I don't know, actually.
Only in the manga, right? I mean,
I don't know if they didn't censor it in, because he said Funimation. It might be, because I know Funimation has its own streaming service that's trying to rival Crunchyroll, and Crunchyroll got bought by someone else. So I'm going to say there might be one out there. Maybe there's like a director's cut or like a Mako, they call it a Mako cut, which is just like all of Mako's terrible mishaps our uncensor the world. Oh, another funny moment, which I think is really hysterical, is Mako at the 8th episode that we watched. She was like, we finally kicked the boys out of the school, and I'm going to celebrate by doing chin-ups with bare knuckled on the door. And so she cuts her fingertips, and she's going to do 50 pull-ups, and everybody's like, all right, this is a normal thing for a woman to do. And so she's like, 36, 37, 38. And then I remember, I'm like, what's going to happen here? And another girl opens the door when she gets to 50, and she falls, and the doorknob is holding up her panties. And she's just like hanging like
the Ultimo wedgie.
Yeah, like an Ultimo wedgie, and she's just like on the doorknob, like, and they censored all of that, and I was really upset about that.
And no one helps her.
No one helps
Absolutely. Her. They're having tea like 5 feet away.
Well,
no one helps her.
That one girl, Anzu, keeps like offering, and she's like, no, I'm good. I'll get myself out.
So I would say, I would be really fun to see an uncensored version of this show, just to kind of see what they were going with there.
Let's be honest, we want it to be uncensored for one reason and one reason.
Yeah, that's very true. And then I had someone who had a really salty take, so I won't read it. I don't seem to have it. I guess I don't seem to have it, so we're not gonna read that one. But someone was really like, oh, this is too ecchi, too dirty and stuff like that. Do you agree with that sentiment of this show is too much, and therefore you should not watch it?
Well, I do regret watching this with my in-laws for Christmas. This was not the right forum for it. So I understand how that saltiness could be, portrayed.
Yeah.
But to be fair, that person has the ability to click the little X in the top corner of their screen and decide not to watch it and just carry on with their life.
Do you think that people can be above this show is what I'm wondering. Like, do you feel like people who leave reviews like that and it's not their cup of tea get the right to look down on those that do watch it?
No. Well, I mean, the show is what it is, man. It's
right.
Gratuitous. It's over the top. It's not trying to be anything that it's not.
Right.
So, like, people crap on people who like country music, but those people are still musicians, and like, you're not any better because you get this all the time. And I think there's even like a Key and Peele skit about like, yo, you gonna put on that old school rap, and no matter how far back he goes, it's not old school enough because there's always someone looking to be better than you.
Right.
So screw him.
Yeah.
So what I'll say is that I'll go back to my gateway comment. I feel like those people that are above this have already passed through the gateway, and they're knee deep in tentacle right now.
So this is like, it's not so that
when your heroin addict looks at that like marijuana casual smoker, then they're going to be like, you don't get it, man. And so I feel like that's where those comments are coming from.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is what I will say to kind of button up my thoughts on it, is I watched it with my wife, who got through an episode, so I'm proud of her for doing that. I'm not going to force someone to watch it if this is not something that they would be, or they feel this would offend them. You have to not take some things too seriously, and this is one of those things. It's a ridiculous concept done ridiculously, and if you take any of it seriously, especially since it's not happening to real people, like, I feel like that's a little too much for me. But speaking of real people, guys, what if I was to tell you that there is a live-action version of this show?
What?
There is?
I was actually hoping for that.
Yeah, there is. There is a high school, a prison school live-action show that came out in 2015. So it came out, like, basically it was like someone watched the anime and goes, I'm going to make this. And they just made the live-action version of the show. And had a similar long run. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? Would you watch that version of it?
Sure.
Yep. How's the lighting guy?
I don't think there's going to be anyone that's going to pull off a Mako in this world, because not too many women can be Mako.
Unless you wear a chest plate or something.
They were like what's the guy from the guy who played Wrath of Khan, and he wore like the pec chest plate, so no one would see that he was like not that buff.
Ricardo Montalbano.
Yeah, Ricardo Montalbano. I think that could work, but yeah. So this show has a live action. I'm actually interested. I'll see what that looks like. I'll report back to you, gentlemen.
All right, very good.
But what we're going to do now is what we call our Weeb and Noob score, and we're also going to have our Weeb wannabe score. Now, the Weeb and Noob score is not necessarily if you think it's good, because, I mean, I like the show, so go watch it if you're interested and you don't take things too seriously, enjoy it. But it's really a score of, it's basically, I thought about this a little bit more, how to explain this. You know, people are constantly telling you to watch something on Netflix or constantly telling you shows you have to watch. This is like the temperature scale of that. This is a thermometer of like, we tell you it's a 9.5, this is us meeting you at the water cooler and going, hey, have you seen the show, this show? Oh my God, go watch it. Like that's that temperature. If it's lower, you can still watch it. It might not be your cup of tea, but maybe give it a little bit of time. There's more stuff that you can probably enjoy. So high score is go out, watch it now. Lower score is give it a beat. That's the kind of way we're going to do it. And we're going to do this a little differently. Garrett, I'm going to have you start as your noob score. Garrett, what do you give Prison School?
Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need this in your life, but you want it in your life. It's an 8.
8, nice. And do you want a rationale why that is?
So the reason why I say you don't need it in your life is that this is not one of the grand animes. This is not one of the ones that will live on in history as a great piece of artwork to be revered and cherished for years and years. But it is fun. It is funny. It hits all of those base emotions that make you chuckle. It's for me, it was just like, it was a romp. It did bring you back to those coming of age movies in the 80s and 90s that we're not allowed to make anymore. And so that's why for me it's an 8.
I would give this show my Weeb score of 8.5. And I would also argue that people should read it because there's a lot more to it. And I think you get a little more detailed. A lot of the censorship's gone. You can pace yourself with it. But also, it's like, if you like anime and also spent any money on the movie Grown Ups 2, you would like this show. you would like this show. If you don't mind the basis of humor, this is going to be up your alley. But there's also a lot of like Ocean's 11 intrigue with it. There is character development. They're not two-dimensional. Like, while Mako's kind of a caricature of a human being, it's still funny. It's still like, there's still things that you can get out of it. It's enjoyable. I had fun watching this. I had fun making if I could get my wife to laugh at like 1 or 2 things on this show, then it's got some funny aspects to it.
Right.
So I would say 8.5, you know, as he said, Garrett says you don't need to watch it, but it's funny and you should. So that's the way I look at it. Tavis, what do you give it for your Weeb wannabe score?
Yeah, so Weeb wannabe, not going to shock the world here. I'll do Price is Right rules and do, the 8.1. Not going to jump on the 8.5, but it's exactly, you need to be a receptive viewer. So you can't start trying to shoot holes in the plot. You can't be an active watcher like, oh, is this, you just need to sit back and accept what they're sending you, and you're going to have a good time. You got to be comfortable with where you are in life and, with the other people in the room. And it's a pleasure ride. It's just some chuckles and a good time.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think for some people, you could be secure in your life and watch something really stupid like this, and it's still quite all right in my mind. So I think it's a good work. And also, Garrett, is this another one of those shows that you'd like to submit to have a second season since it only has 1?
So since I've watched 8 episodes, I have 4 episodes to go.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, just play out the manga. As long as the manga is, that's how many seasons we need.
So that's our plea out there. Watch it and then ask for a season 2 out there. I think it'll be really great. But as always, it's great to kind of have our friends come together to watch something really silly like this show. It's just as important to hear your thoughts. Was Prison School one of those ecchi nonsense shows that really gave you a chuckle and was funny? Or was the subject matter a little bit too much, a little bit too hard to swallow? Please let us know in the comments below, because we really want to continue the conversation, especially now that we're 30 episodes in. We want to kind of keep talking to you guys about the properties that we watch. You can follow us on Instagram at Wanma Podcast or on Twitter at Weeb_Noob. All of our shows are all available on YouTube, as well as available for listen on anchor.fm/Wanma Podcast. Also, Anywhere your podcast is found, give us a 5-star rating. It would really help people see our show, and we would appreciate you as well for doing it. But before we end, Garrett and Tavis, any final thoughts, one-sentence thoughts on the show Prison School?
Yeah, I just got a notification on my phone, and it said that Mako's breasts are being designated the 8th and 9th wonders of the world.
Tavis, any final thoughts?
I think a plot twist for season 2 is girls attending an all-boys school, and no one gets thrown in prison because, you know, a male vice principal with massive tits is nothing to get excited about. This is a Fight Club.
So we're about to do our Hindu squats, whip each other with riding crops, smack each other in faces for our Lubu figurines. All in all, to wish you guys a fantastic. See you next week.
Take care, y'all.
Heads or tails, boys? Choose one now. I said choose one!
I choose heads. Fine, tails.
Don't squirm! Don't make a sound!